All right, hello YouTube. I'm back with a new video, but before I get into today's video, I would like to bring something up that I noticed. Um, when I was going through, like my views and stuff like that, I noticed that 19 of you are returning viewers, and I just want to say, anybody here who is a returning viewer who is watching this, if you like this video and you like what I'm doing here on this channel, what are you waiting for? Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and you will be notified when I have new videos go up. You know, I'm always, you guys are why, I keep coming back. So anybody here who was watching this, please like and subscribe. Now, we are going to be talking about something that I have talked about briefly in the past, when I have done, some of my Marvel updates. But today I'm going to be talking about Blade. Um, and we are going to be looking at two different articles that I grabbed. One is from Variety, and the other one is from Polygon. So let's let's get into this. And again, I want to something else I would like to bring up, because obviously I am going to be talking about Kevin Feige, president of Marvel Studios. I just want to say this is the reason why I started my channel in the first place. This, the first video that I ever did here was called "The Rise and Fall of Marvel," and in that video I talked about that was the first video that I ever did. And I did that video because I was just so pissed off at the time, because I was so pissed off at what Marvel was doing at the time. And that is the reason why I built my channel, is to call out, people, like James Gunn. It was to call out people like, Kevin Feige. And we're going to take a look at something that he actually said, which I thought was just so over the top ridiculous that, that I was like, you know what? This deserves its own video. It's that stupid. So, and this comes from Variety. It says, Kevin Feige explains Blade delays. We didn't want to simply put a leather outfit on Mahershala Ali and have him start killing vampires. Now again, I mentioned I have two different articles here that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at this one, and then I actually grabbed something from Polygon, and that is a recap, an entire recap of the timeline, of this movie's, development hell, of a timeline, and just how it's ridiculous. But yeah, no, let's get into the Variety article. So it says, despite numerous false starts, Mahershala Ali's debut as a vampire slayer in Blade is still in the works. Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige confirmed. Mahershala is still attached, Feige told a room full of journalists gathered at Marvel Studios on Friday about the project. Now, which would see the two-time Oscar winner assumed the role, originated on screen by Wesley Snipes, who played the part in the late 90s and 2000s. And that's another thing I want to bring up. The original Blade, that first Blade movie with Wesley Snipes is one of my favorite movies. I absolutely love that movie. I love Blade as a character. I'm a huge Blade fan. Um, and, and I'm going to continue with, I'm not going to spend too much time on this article, because I do want to jump over to, the timeline that that I said that I was going to bring up. But it says here, as well as in 2004's Deadpool and Wolverine. The obstacle was, and this is another thing. This is another reason, actually, why I decided to make this video. And again, if you watch, anybody here who's watching this, who watches my channel, knows that I have dumped on Marvel quite a lot in the past. And I talk about, and I have called out, Kevin Feige, on his bullshit in the past. And I'm going to bring up, something else that he said. And again, it blows my mind that an idiot like this is in charge of Marvel Studios. It blows my mind. The obstacle was Ryan Coogler called and said, we'd love some costumes for Sinners, he joked. Referring to costumes created by Ruth E. Carter for an abandoned Blade film that Marvel commissioned. Now, that's another thing. Because Ryan Coogler, obviously, who did Black Panther, he did Sinners, he directed Creed, he wrote, and then he didn't direct Creed 2, but I'm pretty sure he was one of the writers for it. Ryan Coogler was originally supposed to do Blade at some point. He was originally supposed to do Blade at one point, and Marvel and the the plans obviously ended up falling through. And that's another thing that I'm going to bring up when I bring up the timeline. Where was I? Sorry. Oh yeah. That Marvel commissioned. Okay. Okay. Yep. We don't need that. Okay. So I'm going to jump over to the, oh, no, I got one more thing here. Sorry, I lied. We didn't want to simply just put a leather jacket on him and have him start killing vampires. It had to be unique, Feige explained. It fell into the same, it fell into the time when we started pulling back and saying only accept insanely great, and it wasn't insanely great at the time. Now, and that's another thing, and that's another thing, because if we go over to the timeline for Polygon, yeah, so July 2019. So this was during San Diego Comic-Con, of 2019, and it says Blade is announced. Marvel announced Mahershala Ali's casting in a revamped Blade movie at 2019 San Diego Comic-Con, mere months after Avengers Endgame was released. At that point, the MCU was at its apex in terms of popularity and profit. Yeah, no shit. and Marvel was confidently greenlighting a lot of ambitious future projects. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige had met with Ali a few months earlier. Now, I want to bring this up. Mahershala Ali, Mahershala Ali was originally um, his first Marvel his first project with Marvel was actually the Luke Cage TV series that aired on Netflix, back when obviously those shows were still going on. But he was the main bad guy for the first half of the first season. He played Cottonmouth, the main villain. And during that time, and during during his time on Luke Cage, he started reading Marvel, and Blade actually very quickly became one of his favorites. And Ali was actually the one. Ali was actually the one that came to Feige, that came to Marvel and said, "Hey, what's going on with Blade? Do you think I could do it?" And, and then obviously, July 2019 rolls around, and, they announce, his casting for Blade. Okay, yeah. And when Ali said he wanted to do a new movie about Marvel Comics vampire hunter Blade, uh, the studio got to work trying to figure out how to make that happen. Now, unfortunately, I don't have this piece of information in front of me, unfortunately. For whatever reason, it's not part of the of the timeline that I grabbed for whatever reason. But the first attempt at this movie, the first attempt, for Blade, originally it was going to be, I shit you not, originally it was gonna be a 90-minute movie with only 2 action sequences in the entire movie. And Mahershala Ali, looked at it and was like, "Yep, no, we're not doing this." And this is one of the reasons why why this movie is taking so long to get made, is because when you look at Marvel Phase 4, when you look at movies, when you look at movies, like the Marvels, like Thor: Love and Thunder, um Black Widow, um like Wakanda Forever. When you look at those movies and look at like their lack of quality, and their lack of their lack of like their lack of like their lack of their lack of like good like character development and storytelling. When you look at that, it's because when you look at stuff like that, it's because we didn't have somebody like a Mahershala Ali, to you know to to be able to be able to really like recognize these flaws, and these lackluster choices that Marvel and Feige made. And you know someone it lacked those movies lacked somebody to be able to lacked, somebody to be able, to call out these things. Sorry, guys, I can't talk today. It lacked, someone, to be able to, stand up and say, you know what, this isn't a good idea. We shouldn't do this. And this is one of the reasons why Blade is taking so long, is because you have, Kevin Feige, who will just come up with, like the dumbest idea in the book. And you have, Mahershala Ali, who is, like passionate and, because remember, he became a huge fan of the character after reading, after reading Blade. And Ali actually also said that, he was a huge fan of what, obviously Wesley Snipes did, during his time, with the character. And obviously, my opinion on, on Wesley Snipes, Blade is pretty much everybody's. He is Blade. But that is, that is one of the reasons why it is taking so long. Yeah. Oh, nope, I lied. It is in the article. Sorry about that. And then I'm gonna do my best to pronounce this name. I know I'm gonna butcher it. July 2021, a director joins. I'm gonna say Bassam. I'm not gonna even try to pronounce his last name because I'm just gonna butcher it. But yeah, I'm just gonna butcher this, but was the first director signed on to direct Blade, according to Deadline. Marvel initially considered finding a writer director for the job, but eventually decided to split their responsibilities between, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce these names. And then it says shortly the director left the project shortly ahead of its scheduled shoot in November 2022, delaying production. Marvel issued a statement saying that his departure was due to continued shifts in production in our schedule. Yeah, sure it was. Yeah, that was totally the reason. Through rumors suggested. Oh, and this is before I read this. Before I read this next sentence here. This is another thing that Marvel loves to do. They did. This is like the oldest excuse in the book, that Marvel, likes to do. Through rumors suggested that creative differences over the movie storyline were the real reason. Yeah, so there you go. And this is something. This actually happened with another movie. This actually happened with another Marvel movie. This actually happened with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Originally, Scott Derrickson was excuse me, sorry. Originally Scott Derrickson, was going to return to direct, the sequel. Originally, Nightmare was going to be the main villain, and it was going to be like a horror, sort of like a horror-y type, type movie, type of movie. My guess is Again, this is just a guess, but um, my guess is, and and I know for a fact that Scott Derrickson is a huge, 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 huge um, uh, fan of Doctor Strange, but my guess is that he wanted to do something a little bit closer to Doctor Strange's first to his first appearance in Strange Tales number 110. Anybody here who has read that issue or knows that issue knows that Nightmare was the main villain in that story. So my guess is he wanted to he wanted to kind of like replicate or kind of like recreate that that feeling, but obviously Marvel ended up screwing they ended up screwing over Scott Derrickson, and they just and we ended up with the fucking multiverse concept that makes no sense. And where was I? Okay, yep. November 2022, Blade gets a new director. And it's Yang I'm gonna say Yang Demanage, I think is how you pronounce that, signed on as director shortly after the first guy departed. While Michael Starberry was brought on to write a new script. At this point, Marvel was still mostly working with lesser known directors and writers who hadn't previously headed up any massive projects. And obviously, that didn't end up happening either. Now, April 2023, Blade gets another writer. Nick Pizza, I'm not going to even try to pronounce that. Joined the movie in 2023 as a new writer, though it was unclear whether he meant to punch up Starberry's script or start over. Mia Goth also joined the cast at the time. Yeah, and this is another thing. From what I understand, she was originally going to be the main villain for the movie. Whether or not she's still attached to the movie, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea. And then it says November 2023, things really start to fall apart. A Variety article published in November 2023 detailed a variety of problems Marvel Studios was facing. Among them, issues with the Blade production, including serious disagreements between Marvel and Ali on the direction of the movie. Yeah, and this is another thing, because obviously, Marvel came up with so many stupid ideas for this movie. Like the other, like the second script that they came up with, Blade. I don't remember if it was the second. I don't remember if it was the second script or the third script, but one of the scripts that they came up with, he was literally going to be like the sixth, like lead character in his own movie. And then the other script that they came up with, I think they wanted to do something about his daughter and then have him be kind of, like in the background, which, neither of which obviously is what Ali wanted. So, And then whoops, oh sorry guys, I lost the thing here. Here we go. And then it says October 2024, the rumor mill starts spinning again. And this is another thing that I would that I want to bring up. Marvel actually didn't want, and unfortunately this is another thing that I don't have in front of me. Unfortunately, however, it is something that I do remember reading after the movie came out. But shortly after Deadpool and Wolverine came out, I actually remember reading online that Marvel actually didn't want Wesley Snipes to return as Blade in Deadpool and Wolverine. That was something that Ryan Reynolds wanted. And he, and Reynolds obviously, fought like hell to get his way for that movie. So obviously, Snipes' return, to the character, Snipes' return to the character after, all these years actually sparked a great deal of rumors of a great deal of rumors and possible, striked a great deal of rumors and possibilities of Wesley Snipes actually returning as Blade, for one more movie, doing kind of like a Logan style Blade 4, which I think would be freaking incredible. And honestly, and in all honesty, I think that's what they should do. I mean, because they can't, and this is another thing I don't understand. David Goyer, who you'll probably recognize from stuff like the Dark Knight trilogy. He was one of the writers for the Dark Knight trilogy with Christopher Nolan. He was one of the writers for Man of Steel. He wrote the first Blade movie. I think he was involved with the second one, and then he ended up writing and directing the third movie. So, but I don't understand why. Goyer actually came out and said, which I thought was not only pretty funny, but also just so true. He came out on an interview and actually said that he doesn't understand why, he doesn't understand, like all the delays and all the writing problems, with literally Goyer saying, this is not complicated. And it's not. It's not at all complicated. You have a guy, who's half human. You have a guy, who's half human, half vampire, who goes around and kills vampires. That's it. That's it. That's really all it is. And Feige's need to just, like overcomplicate things and make it, more complicated than it actually is just ridiculous. Because when you look at, like all the fuck ups, that Marvel, that Marvel has had lately, though I will give them credit for turning things around for Thunderbolts. That movie, I was expecting that. I was expecting that movie to be garbage. Originally, I had no interest in seeing it, and then when I went and saw it, and And, even when I saw the Rotten Tomato score, like, even when I saw, everybody, like freaking out about it, I was like, yeah, there's no way in hell this is true. And then when I went and saw the movie, I was like, oh my God, this movie is incredible. So, the only problem was that obviously, it was a bomb at the box office. But, so while I will give credit, so while I will, give them credit, for Thunderbolts, Marvel and Disney have just done so much damage to the brand as a whole that, that it doesn't, when it comes to stuff like this, it doesn't install me with confidence. It doesn't make me, it doesn't get me excited. Uh, it doesn't get me excited and, and hopeful about the future, though surprisingly enough, Fantastic Four is actually certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes right now, and so that will be, for another video, um, but I brought this up in another video that I did. Marvel's habit, um, Marvel's have. Marvel's habit, recently has been, and I think I mentioned this in another video, but Marvel's habit lately has been make a good, Marvel's habit lately has been, make something that's really good and then make something that's complete shit. Make something that's really good and then make something that's complete shit. Like for example, you had, um for example, we had, Deadpool and Wolverine, which made, over $1 billion. And then I think you had the Marvels, which came out after that, and obviously that was, and obviously that was a complete bomb at the box office. Marvel and Disney lost like 350 million on that. And then they had, what came after that? Was it Thunderbolts? I don't know. I forget. No, wait. No, it was, and then we had, no, wait a minute. Sorry, guys. I got to look this up now because this is going to drive me nuts. Sorry, guys. Just a second. No, that's not it. Sorry, guys. Just a second. Why I looked this up. Okay, yeah. And then we had Captain America Brave New World, which not only bombed at the box office, but but also, people hated it. And then we had Thunderbolts, which did really, 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 really well, both critically and commercially, like review wise, like it got great reviews. But again, it was a bomb at the box office. So, so Marvel doesn't, so at this point, it's like Marvel doesn't really know what they're doing. They don't, they don't really, because again, Marvel Phase 4 was just, was such a shit show outside of obviously, Spider-Man No Way Home. Um, that entire phase was just such a shit show, and that's obviously, and that's obviously, and that's obviously when Marvel, really, started to take a hit and really started, to go downhill. And, and then it's like, you're trying to make a comeback from that. And we're gonna actually take a look at something else that Feige has said, which again, I can't believe that this guy, is still in charge of Marvel. He's just, his idiocy just never ceases to amaze me. He said very, very recently that he believes he believes that the reason why Captain America Brave New World failed is because quote unquote it didn't have Chris Evans. Now, while part of that might be true, it is not the definitive reason for why it failed. When you take a character, and I knew that, and even before, even before the movie came out, I knew that this was going to be an issue. I knew, I knew that after, I knew that after, I knew that after, at the end of Endgame, when Sam Wilson, got, Cap's shield, I knew that after that, I knew that after that, Captain America, was going to struggle in the MCU, because when you take and yes, I'm well aware that this was a thing in the comics. I'm aware. But the problem is that if something doesn't work in a comic book, it is most likely not going to work in a movie. And I knew, and I knew the minute that they decided to do this, because of, because of how unpopular, that storyline was, and because, and because so many people loved, Chris Evans as Captain America, I knew that handing off the shield to someone else was going to be an issue. And, and because you have the comic book side, you have, you have the comic book fan side who's going to look at that and go, wait, who's going to look at that and go, oh, wait, they're adapting this. They're adapting this. This did not work. This did not work. When Marvel tried it in the comics, what makes them think it's going to work in the movie? And then you have, like the MCU people, the casual, moviegoer, people, who aren't comic book fans, but who enjoy, those movies. They're going to look at that and go, they're going to look at that and go, they're going to look at that and go, wait, no Chris Evans, no Steve Rogers. Oh, all right, I'm out, and so you're essentially, you're turning off two different, you're turning off, two different, sides of people here. But basically, but at the same time, all of whom who obviously don't like, that concept. It might be for different reasons, but it is still the same basic, it is still the same basic idea. And and again, and this goes back to what I said before. Marvel doesn't learn from their failures. And it goes back to what I say, it goes back to something else that I said before. Kevin Feige will not admit failure. And now, granted, he actually did admit failure recently, um, which is why, uh, I think I brought it up in my Thunderbolts review. Um, the MCU is getting, and Thunderbolts was actually the first movie to get this treatment, but the MCU got like a massive, massive overhaul. And what I mean by that is, they are trying to repair, the damage that they caused. And unfortunately, despite Thunderbolt's success, both, with critics and audiences, again, review wise, it bombed at the box office. And obviously that is because a lot of people are just sick and tired of comic book movies. And also too is that, because the brand has just been so heavily damaged over the years. Now, and it goes back to what I said before, about Feige, being unable, to admit when he's wrong, and to, and to be, and being, unable to recognize, when something is a bad idea. That doesn't, that something like that doesn't bode well for fans, because obviously fans, are the ones that keep this stuff going. They are the ones that keep this stuff alive. And, and for something like Blade, I think, for something like Blade, I think, a lot of people don't see the reason, a lot of people don't see the need for a Blade reboot. While, while people like myself, I mean, I think a Blade reboot could be very, 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 very good, but it would obviously have to be done correctly. And, but at the same time, you obviously have a large, portion of people who, who will always see, Wesley Snipes' Blade, and who just don't see, the need for a Blade reboot. But, but at the same time, it's not, see, it's kind of hard, because it's not that Blade isn't a popular enough character. Because again, this is a character who's had three movies, a TV show that didn't last that long, but this is a character that's had 3 movies, a TV show, a TV show, and actually he is getting a new video game. If you're a gamer, he is getting, the guys who did the guys who did um the guys who did the guys who did the Dishonored franchise are currently working on a Blade video game. So it's not that Blade isn't a popular enough, what I'm trying to say is, Blade has his audience, but, but the question is, will it be enough? Would a reboot be able to attract enough people? And, and that's, that's really the tricky part, because again, the brand, has been so heavily damaged. A lot of people are, a lot of people are sick and tired of these movies. And although, I mean, if Fantastic Four does well, which it looks like it's going to, according to the reports that I've seen, but if Fantastic Four makes its money, who knows what could happen? Who knows? Me personally, I don't think Blade will ever get made. I really, really don't, because it's literally suffered delay after delay after delay and rewrite after rewrite after rewrite. Um, and another thing to keep in mind is this movie was announced 6 years ago. Mahershala Ali was 45 then. This man is 51 now. 51. Wesley Snipes was 36 when he did it. So, Mahershala Ali is not getting any younger. And, it really feels like that Marvel is just dragging their feet on this project. Feige can say whatever he wants. He can say, oh, the project, is still in development. It's still, being worked on. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah. Nothing that he says is going to convince me right now, that the movie is going to get made. It's, I mean, movies that take this long to get made, when they eventually do get made, I should say, if they eventually get made, movies that take this long to get made, if they even end up coming out at all, don't usually end up performing well, because it took so long, for that movie to get made, whether it be delays due to, for, whatever reason. Movies that take this long to get made, if they get made at all, usually don't perform well, because it took so long, to come out, because the audience just lost interest. It's like, look at it this way. It's like, you were promised one thing, and then ultimately it's like, oh, sorry, it's not happening, you know? And yeah, no, I do not see this movie seeing the light of day. I really, 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 really don't. Um, I really, really don't. And if I were Mahershala Ali, I would just, if I were Mahershala Ali, I would just I would just literally throw my hands up and say, you know what, enough of this. I'm out of here. But again, we'll see what happens. The movie has no release date. It has no script. So who the hell knows, what's going to happen with this movie if it, if it ever gets made. Again, I'm not holding out any kind of hope on this movie, because I really, really do not think this movie's ever going to get made. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know, what your thoughts are. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.